In the previous video, we talked about that a .NET MAUI application has 3 essential elements, and in this video, let's focus our attention on the view, which is the UI element. So a .NET MAUI application may have different pages. In this video, let's focus our attention on a page, right? What is really on a page? So let's take a look at this main page. We have the XAML file and a XAML.cs file. The XAML file represents the UI, and the XAML.cs file is the code behind, which provides logic and feeds data to be presented in the UI. Focus our attention on the UI part. We can see that it's a page. It's a content page, right? Essentially, it's just a page. So what is a page? .NET MAUI application may have different pages. It's basically just referring to that area that occupies the whole user interface. So this is a page. And then inside the page, there could be different UI elements like buttons, images, list views, and whatnot. So if we put them in a diagram to express this more clearly, we have a page, right? And then inside the page, we may have different UI elements. Under other development frameworks, like web development frameworks, we call these UI elements controls, right? But inside .NET MAUI, we call these UI elements views. This view is different from what we mentioned last time. This view in last time's diagram is a generic term that refers to UI. Here, these elements are called views. Each one of them is a view. This is specific to .NET MAUI. Therefore, in .NET MAUI, we have a page, and inside the page, we can have one or more views. However, if you put these views directly under a page, you will get an error. Right? For example, we come over here, we look at our main page. We can see we have image, we have labels, right? We have buttons. These views, each one of them is a view, is actually under a layout. Well, this scroll view is also a layout. The layout is directly under a page. So therefore, we cannot put multiple views under a page. We have to put them under a layout and then put that layout under a page. In this case, it's a scroll view, and then inside the scroll view, it has another layout. Right? It doesn't have to have another layout, but in this case, it has another layout. So you have to remember that directly under a page, there can be only one layout. Under that layout, there can be more layouts, views. In fact, a layout itself is also a view. So let's actually go to the definition of this vertical stack layout. You can see that it's derived from stack base, and then stack base derived from layout. And if you go to layout, it's actually derived from view, right? And if you go to, for example, the image, we go to the definition, you can see it is derived from the view. So a layout is actually a view. You can't see the layout, but it's used for organizing the individual views, group them together, provide layout to them. So therefore, what you really have is inside a page, there is a layout, right? So this is the layout, and then inside the layout, you can have multiple views. And also remember that a layout is also a view. So therefore, inside a layout, you can have multiple layout, and then inside those layout, you can have multiple views. So the structure is therefore like this. You have a page, one page, right? And then a page can have single layout, right? And then inside the layout, you can have multiple views. If we remove this layout, right? Let's try to remove this layout. You can actually see compile time error. Here is that the property content is not set more than, it's set more than once, right? So what we're trying to play the elements inside the content page, which is actually trying to set the content property. But it's complaining that it's set more than once. That means that actually inside a content, like inside a page, the content element can only contain one view, right? This is what it's trying to complain. So therefore, you can only put a layout here. You don't have to have the scroll view. Any layout will do. So if we delay the scroll view, it still works, right? At least it doesn't complain anymore. But in this case, it just want to let it scroll as well. That's why it added a scroll view. So that's the first concept I want you to remember, right? Which is this: a page contains layout, and then layout contains views. The second concept I want you to know is the namespaces. Right? So we have these namespaces. What does it mean? You can see these are XMLs, right? XML elements. But why scroll view is recognized, but if I put scroll view 1, then it's not, right? So automatically the closing element becomes scroll view 1, but it's complaining that scroll view 1 was not found. So these namespaces are provided here. It's exactly like the namespaces that are provided in C#, right? So for example, namespace.NET MAUI. If we don't have namespaces.NET MAUI, even so let's delete this. You can see even the button doesn't even recognize, right? So we put namespaces so that we provide definition for our keyword that we use inside a programming language, right? So in XAML, it's another programming language that is created for .NET MAUI, right? But where do these keywords come from? They come from namespaces. In this particular case, it came from the default namespace, right? It's XML namespace, which is Microsoft.NET MAUI, and then you have extension, right? So for example, if you want to give it a name, you can say x.name, and then you can say image1, right? So you give it a name. But the name itself, it doesn't come from the default namespace. This is default namespace. You see, if I remove x, then the name is not actually recognized, right? That means that this name property doesn't come from the default namespace. It comes from this Microsoft XAML namespace. So therefore, if you want to give it a name, you have to use x colon, sorry. And then if you want to refer to anything that is within the main page, for example, this button click event, which you can actually go to definition, and then that immediately jumped over to onCounterClicked. So it knows this onCounterClicked method in the code behind just because we're referencing the class. If we remove this, we will see that if we right click here and then go to definition, it doesn't know where to go, right? And so if we put it back, now if we go down and try to do the same thing, we go to definition, it will be able to jump over to the code behind. So that's namespace, and it's a very important concept that you would want to know, because later when you code, you thought that this is going to work, but it's not being recognized. That's just because you may need to add some namespaces. Okay, that's everything I want to cover in this video. I'll see you in the next one.